What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today's video, we are back with another episode of Lions Latest, going through the latest Detroit Lions news, and it is officially free agency time. And the Detroit Lions wasted no time to bring back veteran offensive guard Graham Glasgow. So let's get it started. Welcome, everybody, to another video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, we are back with another episode of Lions Latest. Go through the latest Detroit Lions news. And with it being officially free agency time, and we can expect a lot of news to take place. There will be small gaps, and there will be times when I can dive into players individually. My goal, though, especially early in free agency, will to just get the news to you guys. We can speak on these players a little bit, but a lot of it will come back in a little bit later when we're able to step back, revisit these players, and be able to dive into these players, especially if I have not seen them yet, and then we can break down a lot of these players individually. But for now, the focus is getting the news out to you guys, keeping these videos short and sweet, then we can revisit them. Now, players like this, we may or may not revisit them, to be honest, but I think that we probably will. We'll just have to wait and see. But the Detroit Lions reportedly, according to Adam Schefter, are re-signing Graham Glasgow on a 3-year, $20 million deal with $9.5 million guaranteed. Now, the immediate thing that hits me here is that we knew that there was interest between the Lions and Graham Glasgow. We had heard that they had talked once the season was over. Graham Glasgow won an extension. The Detroit Lions wanted to have him back after a career season for Graham Glasgow, and there was no wasted time here, right? It's day one, and it was like immediately, all right, I'll re-sign with you guys. The Detroit Lions seemingly had a pretty nice deal that they had laid out for him, and it's done. He got his pay raise that he wanted. He also probably got really 2 years stability here. And on the Detroit Lions side of things, they got their versatile offensive lineman back, the guy that's pushing now 32 years old heading into next season, but played over 1,000 offensive snaps this past season, played left guard center, mainly right guard for the Lions, and was great, acted as a starter. You couldn't tell me that he wasn't a starter this past season. It was like going to be him or Big V, and unfortunately, with Big V, it just all the injuries and those things. But with Graham Glasgow, he stepped in and he was awesome. And one thing that we brought up yesterday with Graham Glasgow was how I felt like this is actually the perfect piece to put alongside a guy like Penei Sewell. It's kind of like how Jonah Jackson can work to me at left guard with left tackle Decker, because Decker isn't a power left tackle, right? He plays with a lot of athleticism, but he's not moving people around in the run game. Jonah Jackson being plugged in right next to him can bring that to the table. You flip it to the other side, and it's not to say Penei Sewell is limited to just being a power offensive lineman, because he's not. He really does everything really well. However, you get a guy next to him that's extremely quick into his stance at 6'6", tall guy, 6'6", 315, but plays with that kind of quickness like a center would, and it gives a lot, I think, of value between having those two alongside each other. Plus, Graham Glasgow being the veteran, understands what's going on. We can assume that there's a lot of knowledge that Penei Sewell is able to gain, and a lot of help that he's able to get from a right guard that's right next to him, that has played that center position, understands the offensive line in whole, and it helps probably out the young guy a ton. But he had so much athleticism to the Detroit Lions run game, especially in the zone scheme. Also, as a puller, his ability to just get out in space, track people down, that's where he seems to thrive. You want to set up double teams in the interior, the quickness off the line of scrimmage, quickness to get his hands on the defender, and then again, just allow Penei Sewell to come down block and just crash him out of the play. Those two guys fit well together. And the run scheme that the Lions were able to put forth last year, which was the versatility between we can go to zone, we can go to gap, we can go to all the different varieties of a rush scheme. And I thought that's what made the Lions so difficult. It wasn't that they had one staple that they would just lean into, right? We saw a lot more zone rushing, it felt like, last year than the year prior. But the year prior, our Lions were one of the highest gap rushing teams in football. So that flexibility to me has made them so difficult as a defense to stop, because you have to be prepared for everything to get thrown at you. And if the Lions feel like you're not great at stopping one particular offensive style, we'll go into that. Think San Francisco, think all the stretch plays and the pin pull looks and the sweeps. We're going to get into that a little bit. So that's the flexibility that Graham Glasgow also offers. The position flexibility, I think, is just incredibly important, because we don't have a ton of guys that move around on our offensive line. I mean, you don't want that all the time. We know Penei Sewell will flip back between left tackle and right tackle if he needs to, but Graham Glasgow pretty much plays every position on the interior, including playing a full game starting at left guard against Baltimore, which I think you're going to want to leave him at right guard. However, played well against Baltimore, and because of that, it does give you flexibility where the real domino at offensive line feels like it's going to be what they do with Jonah Jackson, and if they weren't going to bring it back, he could potentially give you flexibility step in there if you brought in someone that was more of a right guard style. So he gives you that. Obviously, he can also back up then Frank Ragnow. We saw him do that for 3 games this past season. Vegas, Chicago, the Saints, and then the rest of it was all at right guard. The statistical side of things, as good as he was as the run blocker, because he was incredible in the spots. Pass protection definitely is not necessarily his strength, but there's a lot of flexibility that goes into that, so it definitely can make it a lot more difficult. We know how difficult it is a guy from go to right tackle to left tackle. Probably a little bit different at guard. But with that being said, still solid as a pass protector. It was really one really bad bad game. The second time we played Green Bay at home on Thanksgiving, he allowed 8 pressures in that game alone, according to PFF. That was a really rough game. The positive is the first time we played Green Bay, it was much better. So I guess that's a positive. Obviously, you can help out your offense fine by the play calling, by what the game situation is. Plus, I think the interior defensive linemen are just underrated. Guys like Kenny Clark are just an animal in the interior. But even if you include that, that means that Graham Glasgow on the season, his 39 pressures allowed on 614 pass protection snaps, aligning at all these different positions, that means he allowed a 6.35% pass rush win rate. Now, to put that into context, because one guy's I know his number, Kevin Zeitler, was, I believe, at 3.3% this past season. So it's definitely a little bit higher than a guy like that who's more so known for pass protection. The positive is Graham Glasgow is a big-time run blocker. So that's where Graham kind of wins for you, right? Zeitler is a pass protector. This guy wins as a run blocker, but he's still a solid pass protector. He really had one bad game that took us 39 pressures on the season from 31 pressures, one really bad game against the Packers. And that happens. We know that happens, but that's just the one thing I'd point out. He's not a great pass protector. We understand that there's some limitations there. The quickness is never really a problem. You're also going to get really good communication. He just can get crossed his face. You can lose. We've seen those things. Stability alone, I think, brings value. Now, if you're wondering about why he's getting paid so much, well, yeah, we don't have the contract details, so they always throw the highest number out first. But I would just keep in mind, he kind of aligns himself with this type of deal, similarly to guys like Bradley Bozeman, Ted Karras. I think it's Ethan Posich, I think that's how you say his name, the offensive lineman, guys who got basically 3-year, $18 million deals, and 2 of those 3 basically had $10 million guaranteed. So feels very similar to those type of deals from the numbers that we're getting early. And if that is the case, for example, if you just looked at a guy like Bradley Bozeman, you looked at his deal, this feels somewhat similar to how the Lions have set up 3-year deals in the past, whether that be Cam Sutton, David Montgomery, Alex Anzalone, where that third year definitely has an out there, $6 million that could be saved by letting him go with not too much in dead cap. The second year kind of locks you in for 2 years, right? The second year, the cap hit kind of peaks for Bradley Bozeman over $7 million, $4 million guaranteed for just that season alone, because in the first year, you really don't have any base salary. So that's probably a similar style to what we're going to see here. I would expect his cap hit's probably not going to be very high because he got the 3-year deal this season. Next year, it'll probably rise. And then I would assume in the final year of this contract, there's probably some outs there. Doesn't mean he has to go. I mean, if you extended him again or whatever that may be, there's some flexibility to move that around. It's like we talked about earlier with the receiver position, but I'm expecting that's probably how his deal is going to be set up. So with that being said, I'm going to leave it right there. Thank you, Prop, for watching. Welcome back, Graham Glasgow. It's good to have you back, man. It does feel like a weight lifted off the shoulders. Like, okay, we got one of them. We got him back. I had to get that guy back. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, Prop, for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll be back with more news. And I'm